Welcome back to Cam's Classics. Today we're working on the Mustang again. We're going to be putting disc brakes on. It's always a good idea on these older cars, especially when they had four-wheel manual drum. We're going to be putting a little bit bigger engine in this than stock, so we do need to stop it. It doesn't do you any good to go if you can't stop it. So we're going to be putting on four-wheel disc brakes. The reason we did four-wheel, usually we wouldn't do the back. We didn't on the Oldsmobile. We just left the drums. It was a couple $100 more to do the back on this one. It wasn't on that one. So this one's only a couple $100 more to do the backs and front. So we're just gonna do it all. So let's get started. So first things first, let me find my bracket. So these go on, the brakes go to the front, and these go on with 4 bolts, and one bolt is longer. It is this back bottom one, because you've also got this steering arm there, so you have to make sure you get them in the right spot, the rest of them. And these will also only go on one way. That's wrong. So let me flip it, because it actually does go that way. And that to the front. We did the other side already. And these have to go on a certain way. It did take us all 4 times to get it right. It's a kit out from China. And the instructions are some pictures, and they're not very clear. So, and this, you will see at my feet here, the old drum brakes. So we didn't film taking that apart, but it's literally the same process as this in reverse. You undo the nut off here, pull the drum off, and then undo the 4 bolts and undo the backing plate for the drum brakes. So let me get these started, and I'll let Cameron tighten these up, and I'll show you the drum brakes. It's easier if these are started. So you do want to do these in a cross fashion, so you should drop down to this next bottom one, and that'll just pull it in square. Okay. So these are drum brakes. As you can see, they had a bearing on this side. What you have is this backing plate. These shoes go on it. Just kind of get some of this out of the way. These sit in here like this, and when you push they ride like that, and when you push your brakes, they squeeze out, pushing out onto the drum. It's a good brake system. I'm not going to say discs are better. 95% or more of your semis probably on the road are using drum brakes. They're stopping how many tons of freight as they're driving along. They work. Theirs are air actuated, so they can grip tighter, and so they're a little better that way. We would have left these on the back, but as I said, the kit was so cheap to do them that way, to just do both. So all you did was, there's a castle nut on the front, right like this one. You undo it, pull this piece off, and then these have bolts through them. You just undo the nuts off the back of it. If you're doing this on an old car, 90% of the time you're just going to cut the line, because these are rusted, or they're old rubber, they're rotted, they're not any good anymore anyway. So even if you are keeping these, most likely this is the they call it the slave cylinder. This is what pushes the pads, the brake shoes out. Most likely, if you're redoing it, you're going to be replacing that anyway, and that is what this hose goes into. As you can see, there's so much rust on there, there's probably was never any chance we were going to get that off anyway. So usually if you're redoing that, you're going to be replacing that because it leaks anyway. Your hose is junk anyway, so just pull that all off, cut it off, and undo it from here where the hose went. Okay, so he's got us on there. I'm going to go ahead and take my gloves off because they are greasy and you do not want grease on your brakes. So here is our new rotor. I'm going to take, when they ship these, they always put a coating on it. Why? Because you don't want your brakes to show up all, your brand new brakes to show up all rusty, so they put an anti-corrosion on there. That anti-corrosion can actually ruin your pads. So just wipe it off. That's just some CRC brake clean. And I'm actually going to sit this down on the floor. So what we have, Dad went ahead and already packed these. So you put your back bearing in. You can see we do have some spare bearings here. So this is a universal kit for a lot of the Ford muscle cars. So you basically what you had to do, if you'll notice, I'll take one of these other ones that they sent us and I put it on there. That's way too loose on our spindle. The one that's greased here is the right appropriate one for our spindle. So I'm going to go ahead, and the reason I put it on the floor is to put this seal in. I'm just going to use a block of wood. And I'm just making sure that seals down all the way around. It is now. So, I'm not going to touch the outside. We'll put this bearing in. I find it easier to put it in and just kind of hold it in. So then we'll grab this. Slap it on. There's a little tang on the washer that goes into a slot. And you don't really want to use an impact on this. We're just going to use this here wrench. So basically what you're doing is preloading the bearings. So what I like to do is give it a little spin. Tighten it till it doesn't spin. And tight there. Still spinning. That's pretty tight. There, we're done spinning. And then I just want to back it off about a quarter of a turn or so. Don't have any play there, so we're good. But then what you got to do is you kind of got to fine tune. There is a cotter pin that goes through here. So you have to find where that cotter pin goes. Okay, so we found where our cotter pin goes, but see how tight that is? So what I want to do, I'm going to back that off to there. Put our cotter, make sure our cotter pin goes in. Got plenty of good spin there. And then you want to grab it, of course. Make sure you don't have any play. If you don't have play, cotter pin on. And then we do not want to use a metal hammer. You want to use a rubber mallet on these. If you use metal hammer, you'll deform it. And it's a little bit hard. You just gotta kind of play with it until you can kind of get one side started. And it just takes a little bit of finesse and playing with until you get it started all the way, and then you can hammer it home. And they're meant to be tight, so you're going to fight it a little bit. Now you can get it started. Once you get it started, a couple good hits and it goes home and you're good to go. This is why you use the rubber hammer. So let us get this in, we'll come back to you. Okay, so next we got our caliper. It comes preloaded with the pads. We'll hold it up there. The instructions say you may have to trim, and it actually looks like this side. We're pretty close. I'm going to trim just a little bit of that dust shield off. I don't, just the cutters. There's just a minor interference. So, caliper bolts. This is a little different. They do put the calipers in the front. That is the way it's called for, so that is what we will do. Okay, we do actually have a little more cutting. Now that I got it a little further in there. The problem is they put these up a little bit. We have a little bit of a interference on our dust shield, and the instructions do say you may have to cut some off. We knew we would. So we'll let Cameron tighten that up. So they did send, in case you haven't seen these, you do have to use the copper washers, one on each side. This is what they call a banjo fitting. So it goes through here. There's a groove in there so the fluid can roll around it. You can see there's a hole in here and a hole in the end. Pushes the fluid through here. The copper is what crushes and keeps the fluid in. So you do have to use that. They did send these with it, but the calipers also have one on there. So we're going to use the one with the caliper. And then this will come off this end will be hooked to the caliper. This end will come up into this. Hopefully, maybe. We may have to readjust the calipers or something, because these are universal kits, so may not fit our particular application. We may have to bend that or something to get it to work. but they have a banjo fitting already on these calipers, so we're going to go ahead and use it. So again, copper washer first, banjo fitting next, and then another copper washer. So I don't like all this interference. We're probably going to bring our lines up here. We'll build a bracket to hold this. That way we get full steer. If I put it there, we're already basically tight. And I don't want it to be tight. I want it to be just a little loose, so as we steer, this hose can go in and out. It's going to be tight on the caliper. So I'm just going to leave this hang here. We already did the other side on the front, so we'll come back to you when we do the back. They're just a little bit different, but the way this works, fluid goes in. There's a, this one is a, I don't know if it's 2 or a 4. Looks like it might be 4, so 4 piston caliper. So these pistons push on the pads, which grab that, stop it from spinning. You can hear that where I slid it in. You can hear that. I might be able to clamp it enough. Yeah, I can clamp it enough with my hand to, you can see I can't spin. I can spin it back because these are meant to grip forward better. That's giving it a lot. So yeah, we'll probably use this hole for our brake line. The original one come out here or here and into here. But we're going to come to the fronts. If the kit was made to go on the back, which I wish it was, but then you're interfering with all this steering. That's why it comes on the front. And then we could reuse this, but we may just have to move that up to here and figure that out. But we'll figure that out. We're gonna, one thing you generally have to do when you change out from disc brakes or from drum brakes to disc brakes, they require a little bit more fluid, so you do have to change your lines. So if your original lines are like a 1/4 inch, that doesn't provide enough fluid for these to actually work well, so you have to change them out to like 3/8. So we're rechanging all the brake lines. They were rusted and corroded and crappy anyway, so we're going to change them anyway, so we can just move them up to here to the front and figure it out to get it back to our master cylinder. So we'll come back when we're ready to do the backs. Hey, welcome back. We're to the back. These are a little bit different than the front. They don't bolt on, so we just got to get these broke off. They've been on here probably since 1966. So, not worried about ruining them. We're not reusing them. Okay. So these are a little bit different. So the way you get these out is you have to go through this hole and undo this nut. So that looks like about a 1/2 inch. And there are 4 of them. GMs are a little bit different. This is a 4/8 inch, 8/8, whatever it is, the original Mustang. So these are what they call bolt-in axles. That's why you have the hole. They're 9/16. It's a little dark trying to guess, so But these are, they call them bolt-in axles, so once we undo these bolts, they'll pull right out of the rear end. GMs are a little bit different. They're a C-clip rear end. You got to pull the back cover. And the easy way to tell if you're going to have to do, if they're, bolt-in axles always have a hole. C-clip axles sometimes have a hole, but usually not. But if your center section pulls out the front, you're almost always going to have bolt-in axles because you can't pull that out with the axles in. So you have to have a way to get the axles out. Your GMs, they have the rear differential cover. They're generally a C-clip because you can pull that off to get the clips out in order to get the axle out. Don't know if we need an extension, we'll see. Don't know if we reuse these or not. We'll find out. Kit may have some. Yeah, and there's 4 of them. You just got to spin that till you can see through the hole and see it. And while we do this, we'll inspect this axle, see if there's something we want to do. We'll worry about that later. There's our axle. Should be able to just tap this off. After we cut the brake line. Let's actually see if we can undo it. That one that you had was, I think, smaller. This line's junk, so I got a specialty tool for these. I have an actual cutter. I'm going to use these lineman pliers though, so it'll kind of crimp it off. So I don't have brake fluid everywhere.
Got to undo your emergency brake.
Loops around here. pull it clear out.
Hand it over to Kate or Cameron, right? Get it out of the way.
We'll worry about that later. As long as I can get it through here. So these are what come. This is the other way to tell a bolt-in axle. If it has nuts on the backside, C-clip. If it has these T-shaped bolts, then it's typically a bolt-in axle. So they just kind of slide up there, and then you just do that in. Seal's actually not bad, but we'll come back to you. We're going to do some looking at this, see if we, if we want to change these seals, now's the time to do it. Car hasn't moved for several years, so it might be a good idea to do it anyway. We're going to go ahead and figure out what we got, and we'll come back to you when we're ready to start putting this back together. Okay, so as I said, we got the front pet brakes on, and I was going to show you the back, but let me show you what we got. When we pulled the rear end apart, it needs new seals. It was open differential, really bad gears for the engine and transmission combination we're putting in. So we're going to get a new center section, replace the seals, get this cleaned up and painted, new brake lines. So we'll do another video of the rear end build, and we'll just do the brakes as part of that when we put it back in the car. So thanks for watching, like, share, and subscribe.